As your get up and go got up and went, do you find you just don't have the energy that you used to have? Maybe you don't have the stamina or resistance to stress that you used to have. Has stress become more magnified? Little things that didn't bother you in the past now seem to really irritate you more than ever before. Do you find that you get cold hands, cold feet, or get changes in your temperature that you can't regulate? One minute you're hot, next minute you're cold. Do you get tingling in your hands and feet? Do you ever get little bumps in your earlobes, these little knots here like this? Do you suffer from mental clarity issues, just feel really lethargic mentally, or maybe have low moods? If so, you may have a condition called adrenal fatigue syndrome. Your adrenal glands are very small glands, but very important glands. They sit on top of each kidney, and their job is to help you to manage stress. When you get under stress, the adrenal glands release certain hormones to allow you with the immediate effects of acute stress, something that's very recent and immediate. And also they release hormones to allow you to be able and deal with chronic stress. There's two different glands in the adrenal glands, or two different lobes. One is the cortex and the other is the medulla. The medulla releases a hormone called norepinephrine or adrenaline, and everyone is familiar with adrenaline. That's what gives you energy in times of crises, and oftentimes your adrenaline is flowing, and then after the event, you're just wiped out and exhausted. Anybody that's studied for final exams and did overnight crashing, studying for exams, and then took the exam, and then afterwards, you know how you felt afterwards. You were totally, exhausted. You're able to maybe pull an all-nighter or two, like some of us, and then but afterwards you paid the price. So the medulla is responsible for releasing a hormone called adrenaline to allow you to have more energy to be able to do things that normally you probably couldn't do. It's a hormone that's released in times of a crisis, an automobile accident, or in times of an acute stress, someone trying to take your wallet from you. You're able to have the energy to either have to fight or flight, to be able to put up a resistance or get the heck out of there. The cortex, that part of the gland, of the adrenal gland, is responsible for releasing hormones that allow you to deal with long-term stress, in particular cortisol, which allows you to have stamina and resiliency to stress. But when the adrenal glands get under stress for long periods of time, you run the risk that you can develop adrenal fatigue syndrome, where your adrenal glands, your stress coping glands, can't meet the demands of stress that you put on yourself. And stress can come in a variety of different ways. It can be real or imagined. And, if you've ever been in a theater, in a scary movie, it's not real, but it can be incredibly stressful. It can cause your blood pressure to go up, your heart rate to increase, all the things that real stress would put you under. This imagined stress can do the same. Worrying, but it does. Any type of stress or stressor causes your adrenal glands to release these hormones that the body needs to be able to navigate that stress. Poor sleep, poor diet, sedentary lifestyle, over exercise, over physical exhaustion. All these things can bring on adrenal fatigue. And you can test for adrenal fatigue several different ways. But the gold standard would be to have a blood test, have an early morning fasting blood test to see what your cortisol level is. You can have a saliva test. This is how a lot of functional medicine doctors test for it. And they would do a 4-sample test to see what your cortisol is first thing in the morning, mid-morning, late afternoon, and before bedtime. Normally, your cortisol is at its highest first thing in the morning to give you that energy mentally and physically that you need to start the day. And then as the day goes on, it starts to fall off. And as you get closer to bedtime, it's at its lowest to allow you to be able to fall asleep and get a good night's sleep. Another way to test for low cortisol adrenal fatigue is to self-test by going into a dark bathroom, taking a pen light and shining it in one eye while you cover the other eye. While looking in the mirror, what you should see is that when you shine that pen light into your uncovered eye, the pupil should constrict. It should get smaller. and it should stay that way for at least 30 seconds. If you find that it doesn't constrict, or that only constricts for 20 seconds or so, not very long, and actually dilates, opens up, gets enlarged, that's a sign of adrenal fatigue. Another way you can self-test is you can use a blood pressure cuff, whether it's an automated blood pressure cuff or have someone take your blood pressure lying down. You take it in your left arm and then stand up, and with your arm perpendicular out front of you at heart level, take your blood pressure again within 30 seconds of standing up. Now, what you should see is a difference of 10 degrees between lying down and standing up. So if you're lying down, blood pressure is 120/60, and then you stand up and it's 110/60, that's a sign of adrenal fatigue. You should see that top reading, that top number should go up by 10 points. If you don't, that's a sign of adrenal fatigue. In functional medicine, if you're working with a practitioner who can prescribe medication, sometimes they will prescribe Cortef, which is 1/4 the strength of prednisone and doesn't have all the potential side effects that you would see with steroids like prednisone or hydrocortisone that can cause water retention and weight gain and bone loss and insomnia and some of these things that unfortunately we see with a higher strength medication. If you're working with a practitioner like myself who doesn't prescribe medications, I would recommend that you use an over-the-counter adrenal cortex glandular. Now, these glandulars are supplements that come from cattle, grass-fed, organic raised cattle. And these glandulars can be used instead of using a prescription medication. This is what I use for my patients who have adrenal fatigue. I put them on 250 milligrams of adrenal cortex in the morning at breakfast and 250 milligrams at lunch. And then if needed, maybe double that dose if someone is really, really low and needs some help. The adrenal cortex is different from whole glandular adrenals supplements. Adrenal cortex just has the cortisol. It just comes from the cortex. And that's what you want to start with. You don't want to take whole glandular adrenal supplements because they can be overstimulating and actually cause more problems than they can be helpful. Always start with adrenal cortex. And you can learn more about that at my website, superhealthyhuman.com.